All right, this time it's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to ask you to work any problems because I wanted to do two different types of problems. I feel like we haven't done a lot of slope, if any. So I wanted to do a couple of slope problems and then a little probability. So if I look at question number, the first one, which is number 24 on one of the practice tests, it talks about, this picture, this line graphed in the XY plane is one of the following equations. So immediately I can see through the answers, I'm going to be dealing with y equals mx plus b. A lot of y'all probably are already familiar with that formula, where b, of course, is where it crosses, it's the y-intercept, but that's where it crosses the y-axis. So that's this point right here that I'm going to be working with. And I notice that it crosses, at the y value of 2, 0, 2 point, but the y value of 2. So that's what's going to be the number here. And then so I can, initially I could go ahead and eliminate anything that's a positive slope because this is a downhill. So that's going to take that one out, choice K, right from the get-go. But now if I go look at the other choices, I know that this one is out, J, because it has a y-intercept of 3, and G is also out, leaving me two very similar answers. So now what we're going to have to do, of course, is try to pick out which one of these slopes is correct. And we're going to use that formula y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So basically just subtracting the y values, putting those on top of a fraction, subtracting the x values, and putting those on the bottom. And if I look at my 2 points, it doesn't matter which one you consider 0.1 or 0.2, but I'm going to do it this way. And it's kind of a good idea to draw little arrows to keep you going in the same direction. So I'm going to draw arrows, and the y's go first. So 0 minus 2 on the top of the fraction, 3 minus 0 on the bottom. Of course, that's rise over run if you want to think about it that way. And then that's negative 2 on the top, positive 3 on the bottom. So that verifies that H would be the right equation and 2/3 would be the slope. Okay, if I look at the next problem, it's kind of similar. No graph given, but they do talk about in the XY plane, what would be the slope of this line, 4x plus 7y equals 9. But this goes back to the same formula I was working with earlier, the y equals mx plus b. But if you notice, this doesn't say y equals. It says 4x and some y stuff equals. So we're going to have to manipulate this equation until it says y equals to be able to pick out the slope. All right, let's go ahead and get the x moved first. We're going to subtract it on this side of the left to make it go away. We're going to also do the same thing on the other side, but it doesn't combine together with the 9 because one has a letter, one doesn't. Those are not like terms. And I'm going to put the x first because that's the way it's listed in my formula up here. Now, we're not quite done. If you notice, -4 is unfortunately one of the answers, but that's not the correct answer. It can't say 7y or 1/2 y or a negative y. It has to say just a singular positive 1y or just y. So we're going to have to divide this 7. And what we do on one side, we have to do on the other, which would actually divide it between both of these quantities. And when we simplify that, now we can see the answer. So the y-intercept, of course, not that they ask, but it would be 9/7. And the slope would be this guy right here, the thing in front of the x, -4/7. So A would be the correct answer. Okay, now, if you notice, this last problem was listed number 57. And, if you don't know anything about it, you probably think, well, of course it's 57. It's really difficult, but it's not difficult if you know what this is. This little exclamation point, and they even told you what it was up here. In exclamation read as in factorial is defined as the product of all positive integers up to and including n. So for example, if I said 6 factorial, that would equal 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So it's that number and everything below it multiplied together. There actually is a button on your calculator can do that math for you, and I'll show you that in just a second. So they're wanting to know what this little crazy expression matches up to down here. And unfortunately, a lot of you guys might try to do some distributing with this and pick E, but that won't work. What you need to do is think about what factorial means and kind of expand this out, if you will. So let's start with the easy part. 6 factorial is just what I said. 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 on the top. And let's work with the number on the bottom, the 3 factorial, which would be 3 times the decreasing number 2 times the decreasing number 1. Well, if you notice, we have that in the top, so that's all going to cancel out. And 6 times 5 is 30. 30 times 4 is 120. But if you notice, we've got a couple of answers with 120, so we have to keep going a little bit. Now, this n plus 1 part, it basically, if you think about, we don't know what n is, we don't need to know, but if you think about what it means, it means n plus 1, whatever that thing is itself, times a number decreased by 1. So that would be n plus 1. That's what this whole thing is, minus 1. And then it decreased again. So that's just n, by the way. So the next number would be n minus 1 and n minus 2, etc., until you got all the way down to the number 1. Again, we don't know what n is, and we don't need to know. Now, on the bottom, it's something very similar happening. We have an n. N factorial means n times n minus 1 times n minus 2, etc., till you get all the way to 1. But again, if you notice, I've got the same thing in the top. I have an n in the top. That can cross out this n. I have an n minus 1, an n minus 2, and all the other things behind it would cancel each other out, much like this canceled out over here. So what I'm left with is this single term, n minus 1, and of course, the 6 times 5 times 4 is still left as well. And I already said that was 120. So that is the same expression. 120 n plus 1 would be the same expression as this stuff. Now, if you had the time, you could actually take this one step further, and you could just pick out an n. I just picked the number 10 earlier today when I was checking this problem, and you can actually put the 10 in, say n equals 10, and put it into this formula. It would be 10 plus 1 factorial and 6 factorial over 10 factorial, 3 factorial. And you can use your calculator. I wanted to show you how this works on the calculator. So if you use the calculator that we use at this school a lot, and that's going to be actually 11 factorial. There is a factorial button. I want to show you that on the calculator. So if I can get this where y'all can see it a little bit better. So you go to the PRB button, which is the second button on the second column. And you see how it's got the stuff that we've talked about before. Some of you guys, permutations, combinations, but if you scroll over to the last item, that's your exclamation, and see how it puts in exactly what I have on my paper, 11 factorial. Then you can put in 6 factorial, much the same way, and then hit the divide key. You are going to have to put parentheses around the bottom, 10 factorial, and then 3 factorial. And it could, I didn't close my parentheses, but it still worked. You really probably want to close your parentheses there just to be careful. But that gives you a value of 1,320. Well, if I come over here to my other expression, 120, and put in the same n now, that would give me 120 times 11. But on the calculator, if you notice, if I do 120 times 11, I do get the same answer, 1,320. So again, that just verifies that my thinking was right with my expression above. All right, guys, I hope y'all are having a good ending towards your year. Stay strong and keep up with your work so y'all can finish out this year strong.